Welcome back, everybody. Um, it's Bible study number 5. We're here still in the book of Job. Today we read chapters 16, 17, and 18. We're kind of still in the same kind of theme of Job is just he's just confused, and he wants his pain to end. Here in chapter 16, something I wrote down was verse 16, or chapter 16, verse 11. God has turned me over to the ungodly and thrown me into the clutches of the wicked. I think this is kind of him kind of acknowledging that, even though this is, kind of God's doing, he gave power to the devil. He understands that this is deeper than just God punishing him, and he keeps going in on his friends, telling them, God has made me a byword to everybody, a man in whose face people spit. He also goes on to say, if I say to corruption, you are my father, and to the worm, my mother or my sister, where then is my hope? Who can see any hope for me? Will it go down to the gates of death? Will we descend together into dust? So him saying, if I say to corruption, you are my father, I think that's him kind of referring to losing hope in God and losing his faith. And that's where he then says, where then is my hope? Who can see any hope for me? That's still he's still pleading his case to God in this chapter, and he's having trouble with the fact that all of his friends are just keep telling him the same thing, this is your fault, this is your fault, this is your fault. And then it doesn't help that in chapter 18, his buddy says, why are we regarded as cattle and considered stupid in your sight? You who tear yourself to pieces in your anger, is the earth to be abandoned for your sake, or must the rocks be moved from their place? The lamp of a wicked man is snuffed out. The flame of his fire stops burning. The light in his tent becomes dark. The lamp beside him goes out. So when he's talking about, a wicked man, he's referring to Job. And he pretty much says, surely such is the dwelling of an evil man. Such is the place of one who does not know God. Which is a strong claim to make, I think that throughout this whole book, Job he's been getting tested in how strong his faith is, because he knows what he's, the life that he lives, that he's that he's in, what would you call it? A blameless man is what they refer to him in here as. And yet he has all of his friends telling him, this is your doing, and it kind of made me think too the other day when I was just driving back from the store or something, and I was starting to think about karma, and how the whole thing of karma is, you do good things and good things happen, you do bad things and bad things happen, what comes around goes around type deal. And I was just thinking is that true? Because I feel like this is a good example of, bad things happening to good people. But then again, I had to think about how well, maybe God's understanding, like I mentioned before, his definition of good is different than our definition of good. And we have to understand that we can't, sometimes we're not going to be able to grasp that understanding because we haven't had that experience in our life yet. And so it made me think about, well, then maybe karma still can be true, because good and bad are just two words that can be, depending on who you talk to. It's funny because when people ask me, like, hey, like, are you good at wrestling? It's like, well, I always tell them, like, depends who you ask, 'Cause you might ask somebody who's going to tell you no. You might ask somebody who's going to tell you, yeah, I'm good, I'm bad. So, like I said, there's different understandings of those words. And I think that karma still can be a true factor when we take that into consideration. Because from the outsider's kind of perspective here, it's like, dang, well, the stuff that Job's going through isn't good. Like, this is not good, So what did he do to deserve this? What is his bad karma? What did he do to deserve this bad karma? When in reality, like, God is doing good in Job's life by strengthening his faith, bringing him back, grounding him, bringing him back to his core, back to his freshest, most authentic state, back to the beginning of Job, where he talks about, he says, naked I come from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave me, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. So yeah, like I said, it's just something like I was thinking about the other day that I wanted to talk about. I was talking to my buddy about it too, and because he's been reading the Bible more, and my buddy Mike, and he was pretty much just telling me, like, yeah, like, we don't always see the bigger picture of God's plan. We have such a short-term vision of what we want and what we're going after, and we don't realize sometimes that, like, this stuff that we're going through is preparing us, and it's funny because I wrote that down as well here, is that pain has a purpose, and you just have to find, look at it different ways to realize that. And also, pain can just be preparation for the promotion, is what I wrote down. So, there's a saying, you'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war, And so God's shaping us up through these trials